Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Azahar, and Azahar just got a brand new update, and this one, in my opinion, is pretty big. So at the time of filming, Azahar 2120 Release Candidate 1 is the latest update. And they say here this changelog treats the merge of Pablo MK7's fork and Lime 3DS as a base upon which all of the changes listed here are applied. The changes added in Lime 3DS and Pablo MK7's fork during 2024, alongside the changes introduced in Azahar, will be discussed in more detail. So we're going to have to wait for their first progress report for all of the juicy details, but they do have a pretty detailed changelog here. And they say the method of acquiring the 3DS system files has been completely overhauled, now requiring the use of a real 3DS and the new Arctic setup tool. Here's a big one. They say if 3DS system files have been installed, games owned by your eShop account can now be downloaded directly from the 3DS eShop application. There's also a bunch of fixes here for save states and even more. And there's one pretty big performance enhancement. The 3DS renders for both the left and the right eye, even when 3D is not being used. So if you've got 3D off, I think at a super high level here, it's basically double rendering. And to improve performance, they say this hack disables rendering of one of the eyes, and it could improve up to 50% for some games. They also say here that certain games may experience graphical issues when using this hack, so it's worth pointing out it may not necessarily be perfect. But for the games that it works for, I mean, that's a huge performance bump. Additionally here, they say support for encrypted applications has been dropped. Applications must now be dumped in a decrypted format to be used. And for historical reasons related to the origin of the extension, support for the .3ds file extension has been dropped. You can still make use of ROMs with a .3ds file extension by simply renaming the file to use the .cci extension. Now, considering this is a release candidate and not a stable build, there may be bugs and maybe issues. And considering this is kind of the first release at the same time here, there may be bugs and issues with this one. But it is 100% free open source and I would say very promising. I mean, this person here says, able to run Pokemon Moon at 2x resolution on a slightly old Mali GPU, which couldn't even make it through the first cutscene on Citra MMJ or Lime 3DS. If this is true, this could be pretty huge. Next up, we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with KenjiNX. Now, I'm not overly familiar with KenjiNX here, but it appears that this emulator just got a brand new update. From my understanding, KenjiNX is a fork of Ryujinx. There seem to be a lot of changes here, including adding titles to Discord-rich presence. And continuing to talk about Nintendo Switch emulation, next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch homebrew emulator Citron. And Citron Canary Refresh version 0.6.1 just dropped. Now version 0.6.0 just dropped a few days ago, and it seems that version 0.6.1 has some fixes surrounding multiplayer as well as some Android optimizations. Next up, we're talking about Xbox 360 emulation with Xenia Manager. Now, Xenia Manager is not an emulator in itself. It's a tool designed to simplify the use of the Xenia emulator. It aims to make playing games and installing specific game patches more straightforward and user-friendly, while also providing an easy-to-use interface for adjusting Xenia settings. So at the time of filming, Xenia Manager version 2.5.0 is the latest update. This update has a few fixes and some changes. It fixes an issue when installing content for Xenia Netplay. They've updated the URL to the latest nightly build of Xenia Netplay, and they've added a keyboard mode setting. Next up, we're talking about the Nintendo Wii U, not emulation, but the actual console. And it's been announced that MODMii now supports the Wii U. MODMii can be used to do stuff like soft mod. I would say this is a huge breakthrough for MODMii and I guess also the Wii U scene. So as for what it can do, they say it can soft mod any Wii, Wii U, or Wii. Generate custom guides depending on the options that you select. It can update outdated soft mods, check for updates to homebrew, soft mod any Wii or Wii completely offline without requiring internet on the console. And on top of that, it can do a whole lot more. Now, if you are curious about MODMii and wanted to learn more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. And this post is up on gbatemp.net. And speaking about real hardware, next up we're shifting from Nintendo to PlayStation and talking about the PlayStation 1. and someone here is making a brand new PS1 game to run on actual hardware and probably also emulators. And this one to me looks pretty interesting. Everything is up on itch.io. And they're saying here it's combining elements of Silent Hill and Animal Crossing. The developer says they plan to release a technical demo on itch in the next 1 or 2 months. It won't be a finalized, polished content, just a small place for you to go around and chat with NPCs, and you'll be able to test it on your PlayStations and get your mind boggled by all of the effects. There are some embedded videos right on this website showcasing the game in its current state, and well, it seems to be shaping up pretty nicely. The graphics seem to be rendering well, and it does have that very Silent Hill vibe to it. Next up, we're talking about GIMP. Now, GIMP stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or GNU Image Manipulation Program, depending on how you wanted to interpret that. Anyways, GIMP is a free and open source image manipulation program. I view it as an alternative to something like Photoshop. Some people may really not like me saying that, but at the same time here, that's how I use this program. It is free, it's open source, and I think it works very well. And GIMP version 3.0 just dropped. The latest version of GIMP has reportedly been in development for several years, well, 7 to be exact. And they say here there's much better UI scaling on HIDPI screens, much better support for tablet input. The theme system now uses CSS. And it does run natively on Wayland. On top of that, there's a bunch of bug fixes, optimizations, new features, and improvements. If you use GIMP, you may want to check out the changelog to see everything that has changed. I mean, I could be here for hours explaining everything. This is a real big update. The UI's been improved and even more. Next up, we're talking about Ayaneo, and by the time you're watching this video, the new Ayaneo Pocket S2 may have been revealed. It's set to reveal on March 17th, which is the date that this video is set to go live. Anyways, they say Ayaneo Pocket S2, the new flagship Android handheld, is coming soon. It's powered by the latest Qualcomm flagship gaming platform and will make its global debut alongside Qualcomm's newest gaming platform at GDC 2025 on March 17th. That's all I've got for you right now, but maybe by the time you're watching this video, this will be fully revealed. I'm curious to see what they're offering here. Next up, we're talking about yet another NES emulator, also known as YANE. It's a brand new NES emulator. It's written in Rust and just got its first release. And by first release, I mean second release. So version 1.0.3 came out the other day, and then version 1.1.2 was a very fast follow. Version 1.1.2 contains pre-built binaries and clarification on linking SDL on Windows. So if you are curious about NES emulation, do check out YANE and learn more about it. I think this is very interesting, having a brand new NES emulator written in Rust, and in my opinion, the more the merrier. And talking about SDL, next up we're talking about SDK, kind of. I'm doing my best to have a tie in there. It's not really working too well. Anyways, we're talking about CS Legacy. And this is a pretty big announcement. Introducing CS Legacy, a fully standalone remake of Counter-Strike 1.6, built from the ground up on Valve's official source engine, SDK, and our follow-up project to CS ProMod. The game features fully custom assets and game code on top of our own major rewrites to the renderer, shaders, and various systems. If you are curious about this one and wanted to learn more about it and even see it in action, they've got an official announcement trailer over on YouTube, and I do recommend checking it out. In my opinion here, this game looks really, really good. I mean, even looking at the gameplay here, it's just, well, this to me is a masterpiece. I'm very curious about this one. I may want to try it out. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, especially if you're a Counter-Strike fan. Next up, we're talking about the Pokemon trading card game, and it's being reported that Pokemon centers are waging war on scalpers by removing plastic packaging from new boxes. To me, this is a very interesting practice. I mean, for people just trying to play the game, there's really no effect here. For people trying to get some good cards, again, probably no effect. But for people trying to collect, this may be a big headache because now the plastic has been removed. But the bigger headache is for those scalpers. Considering the plastic has been removed, they're essentially selling an open box, where there's no guarantee as to whether or not those cards and packs have been tampered with. I mean, people are now even scanning these packs with metal scanners to determine whether or not they're a hit or a miss. And that's on top of people already weighing packs. So seeing these open boxes is, to me, possibly a very good thing. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below, if this is a good practice or a bad one. And speaking about good or bad practices, last up here we're talking about Steam. And this is arguably a good practice, or maybe a bad practice if you're trying to save money. Steam has announced their spring sale. It's currently in effect and goes until March 20th. And Undertale is being talked about quite a bit because this game is currently listed for 90% off. And that to me is a real good buy. This is a steal for this game. It appears that I'm not the only person to think that way, given the fact that the SteamDB charts show that this game has hit all-time highs in concurrent players, and that is since launch. That's absolutely crazy. The price point is right on this one. A lot of people seem to be excited about it, picking it up and playing it. Feel free to head on over to the Steam Spring Sale and check out some of these deals. I mean, Doom is 90% off. Enter the Gungeon, 90% off. Heavy Rain, 90% off. A lot of stuff is super on sale right now, so you can pick up some games to add to your backlog that you'll probably never play. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state, and I'll see you tomorrow.